Now, how do you travel to work in the morning? If you live in a city like London, there's a good chance that you go underground on a metro system designed to beat the traffic gridlock above. Well, this week in our series Underground World, we'll like to show you what it's like to be a commuter in some of the biggest cities in the world. But we're starting with Moscow, which claims to have the most beautiful metro system. Our correspondent Steve Rosenberg is at one of the metro stations in Moscow for us. Steve, you're above ground now, but underground it seems to me more like a museum than a metro station.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll show you a little bit more about that in a minute, but not all Moscow underground stations are under the ground. This one is actually on a bridge going over the Moscow River. It's called Vorobyovy Gory, which means Sparrow Hills. It's in the southwest of Moscow. And because it's just across from what used to be the main stadium for the 1980 Olympic Games, it's got a bit of a sporting theme to it. If you look down this very long platform, you can see there are lots of display cabinets, and they contain all kinds of trophies that were won by the Soviet Union. Let's take a look at a few of them over here. These are football trophies, and this one, it says it was won by the Soviet youth team for beating Brazil in 1980. It's not the most prominent trophies, but to me, this is what makes the Moscow Metro special. It isn't just a ticket to ride, it's a ticket to Russia's history. Well, this is something I don't normally do when I come down into the metro, and that's walk along the railway line. I think this one's pretty safe though, because if my calculations are right, there won't be a train coming along here for, well, at least 6 months. And that's because they're still digging the tunnel. Look at this, I'm 20 meters underground, and all this metal you can see is the start of a massive machine, what's known as a TBM, a tunnel boring machine, which is essentially a giant metal mole burrowing its way across Moscow, and it covers around 400 meters a month. Now the machine has a rotating cutter right up at the top. You can't see it because it's buried into the rock. Well, I'm standing now on the TBM. It's incredibly loud. Actually, the workers here tell me that they call this machine Svetlana, which actually sounds so much nicer than TBM. Apparently they give women's names to all their tunnel boring machines. But Svetlana doesn't just dig, she also builds. You see these segments of reinforced concrete. Well, as the machine tunnels its way through Moscow, it also lines the tunnel with a ring of these segments, keeping out the water. Well, this is the control center of the tunneling machine, Svetlana's brain, really. Here Andrei is making sure that all these systems are functioning properly, making sure too that the machine is digging exactly where it should do and hitting the target. To give you an idea just how big this tunnelling machine is, if you were to take it out of the tunnel and stand it on its head, it would be as tall as a 30-story building. Now, you remember those concrete segments we saw earlier? Well, they've been moved up to the front of the machine. There's a man here called Andrei who's got a remote control, and he's easing the segments onto the wall of the tunnel. It's incredible to think really that 70, 80 years ago, when they first started building the metro, there were no machines around like this to help them. Instead of machines in the tunnels, there were horses, and all the hard work was done by hand.